Hello friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works workshop. Got a guitar in here today. It's a private label. It says Whipple Creek. W-H-I-P-P-L-E, Creek. This belongs to Missouri guitar player, and he's a very good guitar player. His name is Dave Maravilla. You may have seen him play with a band. They've got a band that is out playing a lot of the gigs and things out on the circuit, a bluegrass band, and it looks like a really nice guitar. It's mahogany, and just let you see the whole thing there and the whole top. It's in for a setup, and mainly he wants the frets replaced. We'll look at that. Frets are perfect, really. I see nothing wrong with them at all, and you know, I would ordinarily try to talk somebody out of that. These frets are 80 thousandths wide. Actually, they're a hair under that, about 78 thousandths wide, according to this. These frets are much bigger. These are about 110. So he's basically wanting to replace the frets with something much, much larger. And you can see these are much, much larger. I'm assuming that the tang is the same size. It looks to be about right. The tang is only about 25 thousandths, roughly 30 thousandths, somewhere in there. Hard to say. About 20 thousandths. So of course those little bumps on there stick out further, but the tang itself. So that's what we're going to do. That's what he wants, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to replace these frets. So it's going to be a fun job here. I'm going to start by soaking this fretboard down with water, and you know, if you get it good and wet, there's a lot less tear out. These rosewood fingerboards love to just chip out real bad. Well, of course, all of them do. I shouldn't say just rosewood. I mean, the ebony does too. So you just got to be real careful. And what I found that my best luck is to wet it down real good first. I'm soaking her down pretty good. Doesn't appear to be absorbing the water. I would assume there's some sort of a finish been applied. Maybe just linseed oil. I don't know. But anyway, it doesn't seem like it's really soaking in very good. I'm hoping that it's soaking in the slots, that the water's wicking in under the frets. That's what I'm hoping. But you won't know till we try taking them out. Okay, got her soaked down pretty good. Now I'll just dry her back off. As a test, I'm going to take out this fret right here first. Well, one of these two, doesn't really matter. The reason being is that it's directly on this heel, and it's an easy one to drive back in case we have any problems. I just want to pull one out here and test the waters with driving in these big frets and see what we're getting into. I have my little nippers that I have ground flush so that they come real to a very knife edge point. That makes pulling frets much, much easier. That one came right out, no trouble whatsoever. Just for grins, I'll see if I can tell how big this tang is. It looks pretty tiny. Must be about the same. It says 30 thousandths. The other one said 20, so. Huh, that's weird. According to that, these have a smaller tang. I don't know if that's true or not, but we'll see. It might be true because they're trying to go down in there. Now, it's going down in there real easy up to the point of where the diamonds are sticking out there to make it lock in. Now, these frets are huge, and they're long and everything, so what I'm going to do is save myself a whole lot of trouble and cut them off the length before I start putting them back in. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to go ahead and pull all the frets now that I know they're going to work, and we're going to get them all pulled first. I'm hoping the rest of them come out as easy as that one did without any tear out.
In a little village graveyard, he was standing all alone as he read the inscription chiseled deep in stone.
There you go, all of them are out. They all came out real nice, no real chipping out or anything like that, which is always wonderful. Oh, there's a tiny bit you might see if you look real close, but there's very little chip out, so that's a very good thing. I might add that wetting it down did help, because every one of them you can see water in the fret. That does help keep the chip out to a minimum. I'm going to take and just wipe through every one of these fret slots. I have a little X-Acto knife here that's kind of been ground where the back of the blade is very sharp like, and dragging that through there, that'll clean the slot out and get all the crud out of the slot, so that when I put the new one in, I won't be trying to compress some junk down in there.
He fought back the tears as he read every line, while visions of this brave man moved slowly through his mind.
Those frets are really big, so it's going to take quite a bit to chop them off here. If you're cutting them off like that, the ends are not square. So I think I'm just going to take a little time and square up the end and try to get it as close as I can to fit the guitar before I put it in the slot.
He knew he was a hero, though they had never met. He had learned of his heroic deeds from all the other vets. They told of his courage, honor, and iron will.
This block I have here has leather in here to protect the backside. I use this piece of aluminum to drive the fret into the slot, and the aluminum, of course, won't scratch or dent the fret because it's softer than the fret is. I will say those are pretty huge frets. They're really, really huge. But that's what he wanted. That would not be my choice, because to me that holds the strings up above the fingerboard too much. But everybody's different, and we, are just trying to please the customer in this case.
The only thing could stop him were those big guns on the hill. Many young men died on that fateful day. Many young men cried for the pain to go away.
And we'll just continue on all the way up and down the fretboard. As I'm putting the frets in this, it's causing a vibration to the body, obviously, and I'm noticing dust and dirt working its way out of this crack. So that means this is a gap here, and this is opened up, and therefore, yeah, I can even see it moving. So it's little things like that's what you're watching for, and obviously it's been there a long time, because, like I said, it's dust and dirt are working their way out of there. You can see the dust on there, so it just keeps working its way out. I've wiped it off a couple of times already. And so in a way, putting these frets in is a good thing, because it's knocking that dirt out of that hole, and we'll be able to come along there and put some glue down in there and make that glue back together. We're getting pretty far along here, taking my time with it, not getting any big hurry, because I'm trying to get the frets pretty close before I put them in there, because it'll save a lot of filing. Someone gave me a tip about filling this with like a rubberized caulk to catch the end of the fret as I cut it off, and that would probably be a good idea. I just haven't done that tip yet. That was a good tip. But I'm just putting them down here in the carpet like this, and they just stay in the carpet, so it works. It's not quite as handy. Incidentally, after the first fret or two, I took my little saw and I resawed these slots just lightly. I was just getting the impression that these frets were just kind of bottoming out, and I feel like they were, and it seems like they're driving in better now. So anyway, I think I drove 2 or 3 before I cut the slots deeper. I don't think there's any problem with the first 2 or 3, but I just think they go in and feel like they're going in tighter now. So that's a good thing. When you get on this fretboard extension out over the guitar, where there's really not much to support it, you could still drive them in there if you're careful and all that, and I have done that, but it's just a little bit easier or less nerve-wracking, if you will, to just press them into place. Now, I know they make a special press for this and all that, but I don't have that special press. But I do have a C-clamp and a little piece of hardwood, and it doesn't take much. And I've got a piece of leather on the other side of the clamp. So I'm just taking a leather on the other side of the clamp. There's a block inside of here on this particular guitar, so it gives you plenty to push on. Not all guitars would have that even, but you could always put an extra block in there if you needed to. You just take your time and squeeze them and go across there, and it'll push them right down in the fret, in the slot. You might have to go across it twice if you're having trouble. It actually works real good. It doesn't really create a problem. It doesn't take long to ruin your block though, so I usually end up making a new block each time I do this, but that's not that big a deal. It only takes about a second or two. And if you need to, work on a specific spot, you can put a piece of leather over the fret in that one spot. Like right here, it's not working real good for some reason. And then you just squish it down, It's not that big a deal. You can kind of feel it bottom out, then you know you're there. Looks good now. And if there's any loose places, you can always go back over them and squeeze them in. No more frets than I do out over this like this. It's not that big of a deal. If I was doing them every day, that would be a different story. I'd probably have the tool. Well, we got them all in here, and all these last ones were pressed in. We're doing good. It's real jagged and rough on the edges right now, but that's all I've got time for today, so I'll just save this cleaning this up and smoothing it out for tomorrow. It's day 2, and the frets are in, but they're very rough. The ends of them right now would literally cut you if you tried to slide your hand up and down there. So I'm just taping off the top of the guitar so that I can work on rounding these off and, without possibility of scratching the top here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in one direction first just to get them all level here. And some are sticking out more than others. And these are huge frets, so it's going to take some serious filing here. These first couple, I wasn't quite as careful with them, and they're sticking out a little bit more. So I'll take a little bit more filing down here. I got a little more precise as I went up the neck here, so I didn't have to cut so much off, and I'm glad I did. We'll bring you back when we get some progress made. I have been filing the ends for 45 minutes, and this side's pretty much improved. This side here, not so much. My goodness, this is the hardest frets I've ever tried to file. I mean, I think they're brass, it's just that they're just so huge. And it's the old monster frets, what nightmares are made of, and that's pretty much the truth with this. You can't be too terribly aggressive because you'll scratch things up. So, you have to be a little careful, but, I'm being about as aggressive as I can be and still be careful, And, especially over the top of the guitar here, I've got 2 layers of tape on this, by the way. And, it just takes forever when you got that many frets there to take the ends down. And of course this file has been used for a lot of time, and so it's not as sharp as it could be, but it's pretty sharp. I'm rubbing my fingers over the tops of the frets here too to keep from digging into the top. So as far as I can tell, based on there's no scratches on the tape, I'm not hitting that, but it's it's a tough fix here. And that's, I cut those down pretty close, and it's just that they're really hard to file. Might have it there pretty close now. Now I'm going to start beveling the ends here.
Our world is a better place sacrifice the game. That's why on June the 7th his son visits his grave.
That's pretty good. It's not great yet, but that's getting me in the ballpark. Now I'm going to go through and inspect all of them, make sure they're down in there as tight as they can be, and that type of thing. I'm not going to really film that because it's just a visual inspection. I'm going to really look at every fret really good, make sure they're driven down in real good, and then once I know they are, then we're going to start leveling the frets and recrowning them. I spent about 5 minutes just tapping a few of them home, and I believe that they're all real good now. So the very first thing you got to do after you put new frets in is you got to level them. Believe it or not, it looks like you would just be done, but you're not. So you go back through and you level them all, and you'll see high spots and low spots and things, and you basically just want to get one good plane going, and then we'll recrown them. Wanting to give it a visual now and just see, like this one here's got quite a bit of filing. This one's got quite a bit. This one. So, you know, it looks like they've all been touched though. Looking down at it, it looks pretty flat. Looks pretty good. It really looks pretty good. I think we're go ahead and crown them off and polish them up a little bit, and we'll be just about ready to string it up.
As he charged the beach on Normandy, he set the standard time for all those who would follow him and all those who would die. They say he never once looked back, though wounded he crawled on. There are many heroes fallen there on that fateful dawn. Many young men died on that fateful day. Many young men cried for their pain to go away.
Alright, now we're going to take some 600 sandpaper and lightly buff them all out. That'll make them real nice and smooth. And I'm going to work on the ends as much as anything because the ends are still a little grabby, and this will help make those ends not so grabby. And if you don't think they're grabby, look at the sandpaper. It just tore a hole through it. So they do grab. We're getting better. They're not too bad now compared to the way they were.
Our world is a better place for to sacrifice the game. That's why on June the 7th his son visits his grave. In a little village graveyard he was standing all alone as he read the inscription chiseled deep in stone. You won't find it on a well-traveled highway, not even on a dusty gravel road. And you have to want to be there when you find it, for it's not on any maps I know.
Feels much better, but for my taste, those big frets are just too big. But as we said, everybody likes something different.
Out across the field, through the pasture, climb along the steep and rocky trail. When you cross that little creek in the valley, you'll see that pine-covered church on the hill.
That looks real good. Now I'll just clean up the fretboard itself, and we'll be ready to string it up.
Pine-covered church above the valley, where the congregation gathered to pray, built with their hands from the forest, now stands as a marker for the grave.
about as good as it's going to get, I believe. Just trying to get it where it doesn't actually catch your finger. You can certainly feel them still, but I just don't want it catching your finger. I believe that's going to be as good as it's going to get on this. Still real grabby up here. I don't think that's going to change. You can't get the angle to get in there to file those very well.
The siding and shingles are tattered. The steeple leans slightly to the right.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. They're still real grabby up in here. Not that you play up in there very much, but I wish I could find a way to get that on less grabby. This seemed to do the best job on the ends. It rounds those sharp corners off, but I can't get in there to round the sharp corners off with this. Just took the file itself out of the holder, which lets me get right down on the end there. And it's just the very corners of these big frets on top of the fretboard that's catching. And this lets me round off those corners a little bit. So that helps. Not perfect, but it's a lot better. Point out that on this particular file, I've ground off both edges, the outer edges. That helps, give me more clearance, so I'm not hitting the edge of the fretboard. You can literally see how it's grabbing those corners and knocking the corners off. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not doing a perfect job, but anything's better than leaving those corners sticking way out there. Still a little grabby, but not like it was. It was real bad before. This is kind of hard on your fingers because I'm holding on to this metal thing and it's putting a lot of pressure, but at least I'm getting some results. Yeah, that's quite a bit better. I can live with that. It's not like they're designed any different. That's not the issue. It's just that the crown on them is so wide that it leaves long points out on the end of that crown. The crown is real wide, and so each one of those points out on the end of that crown is very sharp. And so I'm trying to get those crowns, the points, knocked off. And that's very hard to do, really, because there's almost no way to do that. This file here does help it a lot.
And though all the windows are shattered, you can still hear them singing at night. The brothers and sisters who worship.
So now we will put some oil on here and clean this up and get her going. I'm going to paint some water down in this crack to see if I can get the glue to flow down in there a little better. It's a very tiny crack. You can see it moving though, and the water, when you put the water in there, you can see the water kind of moving around, bubbling. But I tried to get the glue in there first, and it just didn't go. I used a suction cup and everything, and it still just didn't go. So I'm going to put the water in there first. If you can get the water to wick in there, then the glue can follow the water down in there. But it just wasn't going before.
Gather in that holy place still, though they lie at rest in the valley, beneath that vine-covered church on the hill.
I gave it a good try here. I'm not sure how well I've done, but wipe off all the extra. Alright, so now I've got some leather. This clamp already has leather on the ends. I'm going to see if we can get any squeeze out at all. I don't think we're going to get any, but there might be a tiny, tiny bit. I don't know if it's any better than it was or not. Yeah, I can see some glue squeezing around in here now that I wiggle it around. So just tightening it up a little bit to see. And we'll just let it sit like that for a couple hours. I've made a new custom nut for this, but I'm having trouble fitting it up. This joint here was not made very well. It's not square, it's not flat, it's just a real problem. So I'm trying to clean that up and make it half, see, it rocks like this. It's really bad. Better, but it's still pretty ugly. Wow, it's just, I don't know, I just don't understand how it could be that far off.
That vine-covered church above the valley, where the congregation gathered to pray, built with their hands from the forest, now stands as a marker for the grave.
That's quite a bit better. Now we can put a little super glue in there and hold her in place. Doesn't take very much. It's fighting me every step of the way, but we're going to make it. Alright, so now I'll just eyeball where I think the string ought to be. Tighten it up a little bit here. Looks about like it should be right about there. So we'll cut that first slot, just hold it in place more or less. I will also say that the pegs on this just barely extend through the peg head, so you can't have very much wrap around here if you want to wrap down the post, because it instantly hits the top of the peg head. I mean, sure, it's a handmade guitar, and some of those little detaily things just weren't handled right or whatever. Customer told me he likes high action, so we're going to, not go crazy on trying to get this real low. He said he likes high action, so that's his preference, and we'll set it up where it's not crazy high or anything like that, but we're not going to go to the extreme on the low either. Like I said, because there's very little wrap there, I have to pull it up pretty tight and before I start my wrapping, because you just can't wrap much around the peg.
That vine-covered church above the valley, where the congregation gathered to pray, built with their hands from the forest, now stands as a marker for the grave. It still stands as a marker for the grave.
And I'm just making a little notch there, just enough to get them in place, and I'll adjust them then by eye if they don't look like they're straight or whatever, or if they don't look like they're even, I mean. It's actually pretty hard to string with those pegs just barely going through the peg head. If you can see what I'm talking about there, the strings are right down against the peg head. It's just different. We're at the point now where we can start working on the action and everything. The string width up here looks pretty good. I can see just some very, very minor adjustment that needs to be made as I file them. I'm not going to show all the filing up here. If you've seen it many times before, we'll bring you back when we can play it. Because this customer wants a little higher action, instead of using my typical 18 thousandths, I'm using 20 thousandths. And if you can see that there, it slides in there, doesn't touch the string, but then yet the string doesn't really go down either when you touch the string. So I mean, it's just almost exactly at 20 thousandths. So that's what we're going to set these all at. The action's just about perfect. It's at 20 thousandths right here, and it's at 100 on this side and 90 on this side. Now, I actually don't have it up to full pitch yet, so when I bring it up to full pitch, that may change, and we're going to check it again here. Looks like to me that there's probably a little more underbow in the neck than it needs, just looking down it. Yeah, there's quite a bit of underbow in it, so we may want to take it apart here and tighten that up in just a minute. I want to just check the action here to see how close it is. Is it still close? Yeah, it's still very close. Yeah, it doesn't seem to have affected the action much here that we're up to pitch. It's still right at 20 thousandths, boy. They're right on the money. And we'll double check the 12th fret here. It was 100 thousandths right here. Still very close to that. Here's 115. Yeah. So it's about 115 and 100. He says he likes high action, so that's not too bad. But I think that this truss rod's got too much bow in it. I think we need to tighten it up. I'm going to see if we can get to it. It's got the tiniest hole I believe I ever saw, so I don't know what kind of a truss rod adjustment this has in it, being a handmade guitar. It must be a screw or something, because it's a tiny hole, or maybe it's an Allen wrench. But anyway, it's a pretty small hole. I'm going to see if I can stick an Allen wrench back in there and get lucky. Oh wow, can't even reach it. So we'll have to go inside here and see what we're working with. I had to use an Allen wrench that long to reach in there, and it did reach in there, and just lucky that was the right size. You know, of course, I've got the strings loose on here right now, so I tightened it up. It looks pretty flat, so I'm going to bring it back up to pitch again and take another look at it. Got it up to pitch. I'm looking down the neck, and that looks much better. It's probably still got more underbow than I think it needs. Let me check the action again, see if that did anything here. Yeah, that brought that back down to 100 thousandths, right on the money. And let's see if it's back to 90 over here. Right on the money. Right on the money. So we're at 190, and that's just about where he wanted it, I believe, just based on his comments. I think it's set up just about as perfect for him as I could set it up. 20 thousandths here, 190 there. I think we're in very good shape. Let's see what it sounds like. It's got a very nice sound. In South Carolina, there are many tall pines. I remember the oak tree that we used to climb. But whenever I want you, I always pretend that I'm getting the feel, the hickory wind. Well, there you have it, the homemade guitar, or I say homemade, I don't even really know that, but like I said, it's a Whipple Creek guitar. It appears to be a one-of-a-kind handmade guitar for a lot of different reasons, just looking at it. But mainly that peg head being that thick. In one way, that's not a terrible thing. A heavier peg head gives your instrument more sustain. This certainly has a lot of sustain. It's a nice, nice guitar, and I think it's set up really well with those giant frets. The Luthiers Nightmare Monster Frets. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.